Bitcoin finally crossing that $100,000 mark yesterday during trade. But if you take a look at some of these alternative digital assets, they're actually outperforming Bitcoin over the past 10 days. Here with more, we've got Andy Baehr, CoinDesk Indices head of product. Andy, great to speak with you. We finally got over 100K here, but let's talk about the assets outside of Bitcoin. Where should investors be keeping an eye for other opportunities?
That's right. 9:33 last night, by our reckoning, we had that champagne moment where we crossed 100,000 and got to the CoinDesk Bitcoin price index got to 103 and change about half an hour later. Bitcoin's regulatory status is pretty much done for the most part, right? Futures contracts, ETFs, spot available in 50 states. I think the mention by Chairman Powell yesterday and the integration of digital assets into the messaging around future Chair Atkins' position kind of helps the adoption momentum. But Bitcoin kind of doesn't need a lot more of that. We were talking earlier that the trades happen overnight. There's plenty of trade momentum there. So Bitcoin's great as a store of value, as a digital gold. I think we're done. The other assets which count more on regulatory pavement think about things like smart contracts, stable coins, future of finance, Web3, things that'll change our lives in the future. They need the regulatory pavement. Since the day before Election Day, the CoinDesk 20 index, which caps Bitcoin and Ether weights but looks at altcoins mostly, has doubled. So that momentum has really been based on the news and on the future of what's happening in the new administration.
So, Andy, I'm curious about these other coins. I want to stick on that for a second. I'm looking at our Wi-Fi Interactive right now. You can see Bitcoin is up about 50% over the last month. Right there. Most of the coins, though, outperforming, as you were just pointing out, right? Like I'll pull up Ripple, up over 350%. What do investors need to know about some of these other coins when it comes to maybe a Ripple or Cardano? What coins stick out in that altcoin space? Yeah,
it's a great question because for most investors, for what we call the 5%ers, most of people who are really going to allocate 5%, they can't. They can't do it, right? They don't want to pick which and they don't want to pick when. We know what Ripple does, and we know about the lawsuit history with the SEC, and it's win after win after win. But you really have to be in the weeds to track that, and timing is almost impossible, right? So people should understand what a smart contract platform layer one is. They should understand what Ethereum does, and the things that are built on top of Ethereum. Smart contracts, stable coins, NFTs, meme coins, they have to reside somewhere. Think of Ethereum as a clearing layer of that. Solana, Cardano are competitors to that. Right, so already we've probably lost a bunch of people who have said, great, just give me an index, give me a QQQ of crypto and let me buy that. That's the thing that's really sprung to life when the regulatory pavement looked like it was going to get set in place next year.
Is the QQQ of Bitcoin the right way to get in for people who are not in yet?
In the United States, it's hard because, and we're hoping that it gets easier next year, there are funds in place, there are private funds in place which allow access to this. And the great thing about that CoinDesk 20 index, Bitcoin and Ether are capped very low, so you get a lot of exposure to the altcoins. If you have some Bitcoin already, CoinDesk 20 makes that kind of perfect next allocation into the future of finance. So that's really proven itself. It's outperformed Bitcoin in the past week, in the past month, and in the past year, simply because timing's hard to get right. But when the news starts to get good, there's a lot of built-up energy in future of finance.
I want to talk about the SEC chair nomination, Paul Atkins, right? We know that he is expected to at least not be as much of a crypto hawk per se as Gary Gensler, and he's relatively pro-crypto. But what can he actually do that's going to help the cryptocurrency?
It's a great question. Go to Hong Kong, go to Dubai, go to Europe. You have dedicated digital asset regulators. We don't have that here. We have... you have two outfielders, the CFTC and the SEC. There's a ball in the air, and they're just deciding who's going to catch it, right? And that hasn't worked, right? So there have been some news reports that cryptocurrency regulation might be housed inside the CFTC, and the SEC would have less to say about it. However that works out, it's fine, but you need dedicated, reliable cryptocurrency regulation so that new projects and existing projects know what they can do and what they can't do. I think we've demonstrated pretty convincingly that trying to decide whether they're commodities or securities is something which is only going to hold back the United States. So the administration has to get together and actually build stuff. The biggest myth in the world is that crypto wants no regulation. We want a lot of regulation, but that's written clearly.
So what does a crypto czar position getting added to the outfield do to that dynamic?
It's determined regulation over blockchain assets, which can understand their unique nature, which can understand how they grow. They're kind of dual nature as being able to be traded in native form on exchanges like Coinbase or Kraken, but also be wrapped into traditional investment products like futures and ETFs. We need all of that. Getting rid of any of that is kind of a waste of what has been built up over the last 16 years. So dedicated regulation about digital assets, and hopefully not this one by one, ETF's okay on this, but not okay on those 5. We need a way to sort of wholesale. As an index company, we're hoping that indexing provides regulators a way to look at diversification as a way to protect investors while still giving them access to more of the digital asset class.
Andy, thanks so much for coming in studio. We appreciate it.
Thank you.